まだだぜ。ああ、ダメだ。全然ダメだ!
Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry, Episode 4. We are still in this tea party to wrap up this episode, and I'm not going to give some sort of, what happened in the last video type deal or recap or whatever. If you know, you know. I think we're going to be jumping into arguing over the events of Episode 2 next.
We
just got to get the show on the road here.
彼らに与えられた飲食物に小型爆弾が入っていて腹の中で爆発した。つまりトラップ X による犯行の可能性。気づかずに飲み込んで腹をぶちまけるような爆弾の詳細については悪魔の証明。説明拒否。
Yeah, it's quite the stretch. We're talking about the first Twilight in Episode 2.
なんだよそりゃ。小型爆弾?
Wasn't there candy in their guts too? Like Happy Halloween or whatever? But Beato failed to knock down the blue wedge as it flew at an angle like a breaking pitch. Yeah, she doesn't seem to be arguing against this one. It let out a loud thunk and gouged itself deep into her left shoulder. However, even as the breaking pitch hit her, her laughter didn't seem to be stopping. Yeah, I get it. Even I think that theory's pretty screwed up.
好きなだけ笑いやがれ。文句があるのか？
なし。その暴論や心地よし。次なるジェシカとカノンの密室は。
Oh yeah, that is a very confusing one. Supposedly no one was in the room with them, right? Could there may have been somebody with them? Going back to my idea that I brought up, I think in the previous video, that all was not necessarily as it seemed.
問題ない。使用人の誰かが犯人であればマスターキーを使える。密室ですらない。
その後、使用人室でカノンらしき謎の人物が襲いかかり、南條と熊沢が殺されたな。カノンの死亡はあの時刻以前に赤で宣言済みだった。ならば、あのカノンは何者だというのか。
Isn't it like a similar situation with what we saw here in Episode 4, where we thought that we were seeing Kinzo, but it actually wasn't?
カノン君の死亡は赤で宣言済みならば、よって襲われた彼らがカノン君と誤認するような何者かの変装の可能性がある。
彼らは異なる人物をカノンと誤認することは絶対にない。
Come on, we have to give the same sort of argument.
金蔵の名の世襲と同じに
There we go.
カノンの名が世襲された可能性がある。カノン君が殺され別の人物がその名を受け継ぎ彼らを襲ったと仮定できる。
Did that work? I think that worked out. A sound like a watermelon being squashed rang out, and a blue wedge was buried deep into Beato's left flank. Maybe a hit in a bad place, since it seemed to be really effective. After leaning over and moaning for a while, she laughed it off as though trying to make it seem like no big deal. Yeah, I get it. That must have hurt a lot.
またしてもこともなげに人間の誰かを犯人に仕立ててきやがったぜ。ゲーム盤上では口が裂けても言えぬことを実にシャーシャーとのたまう。しかし有効だ。その暴言心地よし。心地よいぞ。これは痛みではない。心地よさだ。
Oh, you a freaky witch. When Beato howled, the wedge that had pierced her was blasted away. But the wound remained, and she continued to be tormented by a fierce pain.
いいのか？続けていくぜ。第2のゲームの最後の殺人。夏日おばさんの部屋で死んだ3人についての青き真実は18人目の X を否定されても有効のはず。赤で反論はあるか？なければ第2のゲームも俺のものだ。
ああ、ないぞ。そのようなさまつで戦うのもつまらない。くれてやる。第2のゲームなぞ貴様にくれてやるわ。
It's so interesting, you know, just going with the idea that a master key was just obtained or utilized. The idea that, yes, there really isn't an 18th person with Kinzo not being alive. And with the idea here of just people using others' names. What we've been seeing this entire time is not accurate whatsoever. Just a, very slight idea. And these aren't necessarily, the answers here. Not by a long shot, I'm sure. But it does prove one thing. That a whole lot of what we've been seeing for sure can be proved by just moving things around in such a way you really wouldn't, ever. The instant she acknowledged her loss in the second game, 2 blue stakes gouged through Beato's chest this time. Episode 2 was a tough one because of the closed room situations, but yeah, considering, just how we could just have inside people, on the job here, which Battler was really, really against in the very beginning of this all, it really does help paint a sort of picture. What that picture shows, I have no idea. The witch's lungs were gouged, as were her intestines. Her face twisted in anguish. Her body twisted as she gasped in pain.
痛えのか?
痛い? いやいや、くすぐったいくらいよ。全身を細切れにされてくず肉の山にされたお前の妹に比べればね。お前もくず肉にしてやるぞ。兄弟仲良く混ぜて合いびきにしてくれるわ。
ぶち殺してやる。お前を同じ細切れにしてやる。次だ。第3のゲームだ。
Oh yeah.
いつまでへばってやがれ。てめえを地獄に叩き落としてやるのはこれからだ。
I want to say that we have such an advantage with the third one. Just because of how everything kind of went down in it.
無論よ。これくらいでへばるものか。そうとも。まだまだこれからよ。さあ、第3のゲームを始めようぞ。
Ah, fuck.
まず本来なら、この密室はそなたが当時にカンパしている。
Yeah, we were on the right
し
track.
かし、そなたは金蔵を殺してしまった。
Even before that, we were actually on the right track with something with Virgilia back in the previous episode, but we were cut off. At the time, I theorized that Gramps was the culprit, and that after killing the other 5 and stringing the keys across each room, he had constructed his own closed room in the boiler room. And that there, he had died in an accident while carrying out some kind of scheme, burning to death in the boiler. But now I've declared that Gramps was already dead, so I've denied my own theory myself, ironically enough. However...
問題ない。ジジイ以外にも犯行可能な人間は大勢いる。親族会議中だった大人たちが全員グルで犯行に及んだとさえ言い切れる。
マスターキー5本はすべて5人の使用人の懐よりそれぞれ発見された。個別の鍵は死体の傍らの封筒の中に。つまり連鎖密室に関わるすべての鍵が連鎖密室内に閉じ込められていたわけだ。ドアの隙間だの窓の隙間だの通気口だの、そんなところを使って密室外から鍵を戻すことなどできるぞ。
なら毒ガスで殺したんだ。鍵は通らなくてもガスなら通るぜ。密室の外から殺人を実行したんだ。
But they had wounds, right?
彼ら全員には
Yeah, there we go.
致命傷となった重曹と思わしき傷
Gunshot
跡があったぞ。
wounds.
室外からの殺害は不可能だぞ。さらに赤を重ねようぞ。金蔵を除く5人の殺人の際、殺人者は必ず同室していた。自殺者がいないことは当時に赤で宣言済みだ。
But the idea of accidental deaths?
犯人は全員をそれぞれの部屋で殺害後、連鎖密室を構築した。しかし最後の部屋の鍵だけはどうしても密室内に戻せない。だが戻すことはできたぜ。 死体の第一発見者が鍵を見つけたふりをして誰かの死体のポケットから取り出して見せればいいからだ。
That's a pretty good idea. She couldn't fully block the retort of that blue stake. Beato was pushed back by the blue wedges that were unleashed on her one after another, finally failed to block one, and once again took a severe wound. As she howled in pain, she pulled out the blue wedge that had pierced her right arm. Beato's entire body had been torn apart and pierced with blue wedges, stakes, and blades over and over again. And now she was totally covered in blood. But even so, Beato grinned, cackling as though this was amusing.
エンジェに親を連れ戻して帰宅すると約束した男がどの口で親を犯人にした説を語るというのか。いいぜ、それでもいいんだぜ。家族で仲良く大量殺人に手を染めて決して落ちぬ血にまみれながらエンジェのところに帰れよ。それでこそ魔女の島からの生還者にお似合いだぜ。クズ肉エンジェにぴったりだ。
Oh yeah, she freaky. But in a different way.
黙りやがれ。てめえを殺せ。バラバラにして殺せ。命乞いの必要はないぜ。絶対にこの手で最悪の死を与えてやる。
ああ、そなたならできるだろうよ。千年の果てに残虐の限りを尽くしきったわらわにそれに見合う最後を与えてくれるだろうよ。ああ、それは痛いのか辛いのか、それともくすぐったいのかな。これくらいで答えるかよ。来いよ、後ろ宮バトラー。まだ謎は残ってるぜ。
I mean, technically there's more mysteries left than just the murders, but whatever. Beato had already countered my first powerful move, the 18th person X, by making the number of people on the island 17. But just limiting the number of people to 17 didn't overturn the theory that Aunt Ava was the culprit. I can crush most of the murders in the third game this way. I still want to stick with my idea that, you know, there was a different accomplice / culprit in each of these. Blood dripped from all over the body of the Golden Witch. I cornered her, this time thoroughly without mercy. And this isn't a game played to decide who wins and who loses. Yeah, we aren't playing. Even the time I spend playing and fighting like this delays my trip home. In her isolation, Ange will continue to have her heart torn apart by loneliness and sadness. I have to go back to Ange as fast as I can.
ボロボロだな。虫の息ってやつか。
Oh. No, she's good. Yeah, see?
まだまだ答えぬわ。これくらい。こそばよいわ。
Uh-huh.
いらねえよ。
We can see through that.
よし、
元よりそのつもりもなかろうが。
存分に行くぜ。
そうせよ。逆の立場だった時、わらわは容赦しなかった。だからそなたもそのチャンスがあったならそうするべきであろうが。じゃないとまた別の世界の孤独な演者を呼んで、今度は獅子を引きちぎって槍に刺して炙り焼きにしちまうぜ。
Wow.
黙れ。もう二度と俺の家族も親族もそして使用人のみんなもお前のおもちゃにはさせねえぜ。俺はすでに第4のゲームの謎も全て青き真実で打ち破っている。残る謎は第3のゲームの一番最後、南條先生の殺人だけだぜ。
Yeah, that one still sticks out.
おや、わらわは もうそんなところまで追い詰められていたか。わらわも風前の灯火であるな。
Yeah, you seem to be doing pretty fantastic over there, Beatrice. She coughed violently, spitting up blood, excuse me. Her insides had been punched through so many times. It was only natural.
ということは、この南條先生殺しの謎だけが。
そうなるな。これを破られたなら、わらわは全ての謎を破られたことになる。
Yeah, let alone all the wacky bullshit that happened in this one.
そなたの真実のいずれかを新しき赤き真実で反論するか、わらわは死ぬ。
追い詰められて風前の灯火って感じには見えねえぜ。まだ何か隠し玉を持ってやがるな。
さて、わらわはもはや千年の長すぎる生涯にあいている。その果てに巡り合ったそなたという公的種によって生涯を閉じるのも悪くないと思い始めている。そなたならやれるよな。やってくれよ。頼むよ。殺してくれよ。殺してばっかりでさ、殺された試しがねえんだよ。
I mean, she kind of had that experience in episode 3. Not really, but, you know.
一回くらいは経験してみてんだよ。
It was a graceless show of boldness, unchanged from before. But blood dripped from her mouth. Her once beautiful dress was covered with holes, and blood poured from all over her body, making her physical appearance stand in sharp contrast to her attitude. Maybe the shot that she had taken to the flank was still tormenting her, since she was still pressing down on it unconsciously without a trace of grace. But I've got no time for pity. As long as I feel sympathy for this witch, my family and I won't be released from this place. Until I defeat her, we won't be able to go home. In the outside world, it may be possible for even enemies to understand each other when circumstances change. But pure evil does exist. Evil that brings misfortune just by existing, and is to be spared no compromise. Just by its continued existence alone, it's evil.
お前を哀れには思わない。お前が俺たちの誰にもあれまなかったように。
そうともさ、お前らなんてゲームの駒だぜ。毎回最初の6人は誰を殺そうかな、次の2人はどう殺そうかな、もっとグロい殺し方はねえかなって考えるのは最高に楽しいぜ。
I will admit, this episode was very, very different, and the way that things went was very much in a more magical direction compared to a mystery type direction. Though I guess you can argue there's still mystery in it because you still want to figure out how things actually went down. Nonetheless, seeing things happen in such a way that is like mind-boggling is always a lot of fun.
なあバトラよ、少し改心するから今回も許してくれよ。そしたらさ、もうちょっとマシな殺し方に変えてやるからよ。誰をどの順でどんな風に殺すか、お前の希望も聞いてやるからよ。楽しいぜ。人の命をもてあそぶってのはよ、お前なら考えつくよ。エンジェをもっとクズ肉にしてやる方法はよ。来いよバトル、南條殺し暴いてみろ。
It's crazy just how much she sounds like Ava Beatrice all of a sudden, you know? The 18th person X has been defeated, but I won't give in. I'll stop that witch's breathing cold. The end of the third game. It was announced in red that the survivors at that point in time, Battler, Ava, Jessica, and Nanjo were all uninvolved with Nanjo's murder. And it was also proclaimed that he was murdered directly by someone before his eyes. All other people had the strongest possible alibi by having their deaths proclaimed in red. Yeah, Jessica was somewhere else, and I'm pretty sure Battler and Ava were having some sort of showdown. So they weren't anywhere near Nanjo, and everybody else was definitely dead. I think Kanun died twice in this one too. I'll break through this without using the 18th person X. I mean, I have no idea. Think. Don't stop thinking. Her red doesn't only bind me. It's also supposed to be her weak point. I've got to somehow use it against her. I'm just, absolutely spitballing something here. But the idea of utilizing a name, passing that down, and that being able to cover somebody else up in the story, mistaking Kinzo for somebody else, or Kanun back in episode 2. What if multiple personality disorder was utilized here as well? You're a different person whenever you're in your other personality. Whether that's acknowledged by other people or not, that could maybe be a factor. I'm not saying this is like an overall prediction I want to write down or anything, definitely not, because this is way too far-fetched. But, I mean, we've got some really freaky people here. Like, there's definitely got to be some problems with the noggins of some of these characters, more so than just Maria, and Kinzo. But Kinzo's dead. That's right, there's still a gap. Yeah. This way I can break through it. This way, Beatrice's legend of the witch is finished.
確かに他の連中は死亡だったろうさ。だが赤で死亡を宣言されたのは南條先生が死んだ瞬間ではない。厳密に言えば南條先生の死体が見つかった後の俺とエヴァの戦いにおいてだ。つまり南條先生を殺した時点では生きていた何者かがエヴァの死亡宣言までの間に死亡していればその感激は縫えることになる。
Ooh, a timing deal.
つまりはこういうことさ。エヴァの死亡宣言で初めて死亡とされた人物の中に犯人がいて、その人物は最初うまいこと死んだふりをして俺たちをやり過ごした。そして赤での死亡宣言がないまま俺たちには死んだと思い込ませた。
But at the end of it all, when things actually were proclaimed in red, the culprit was among them.
そして南條先生を殺し、その後に何かの理由で死んだ。そしてその後にエヴァが赤で死亡宣言を出す。以上の仮説でも南條先生の事件は説明できる。
A timing deal, nice. Does it stick? How's that, Beatrice? Ooh. When he forcefully asked that question, there was a terrible sound that could only be likened to that of a compressor, and a blue stake that was as thick as a log appeared from under the earth and skewered the Golden Witch Beato, pulling her up into the air. Is that all she wrote? Ugly tearing sounds rang out, and each time a blue stake or wedge would appear and pierce Beatrice's body. When that finally ended, her tragic form was exposed, pincushioned by more than 10 stakes and wedges all over her body and dripping with blood, dangling and crucified. Ooh. There was none of the dignity of the brutal witch who had sneered at the honor of the dead and toyed with and killed hundreds of the living. The rain, which had started falling at some point, quietly tormented the crucified witch. As Battler heaved with his breathing, he waited for some kind of answer from the Golden Witch. Although it wasn't long, it took the witch a bit of time to show any signs of life.
自業自得だぜ。お前が殺めてきた人々の痛みの一部を思い知れ。
Even as he said that, it seemed Battler had lost a little of his momentum at this extremely pathetic sight. Even if it was an enemy, he couldn't look straight at a woman exposed in such a brutal fashion. But even so, unless he destroyed Beatrice, this battle would not end.
バトラー、頼むよ。
Huh? Beato let out a sob.
いてよ。すげえ。いてよ。終わらせて。終わらせて。これでもまだ死ねねえんだよ。こんなにいてえのにまだ死ねねえんだよ。
俺に何を求めやがる。
終わらせて。この
How?
するから。
I mean, the whole idea of this battle was to basically, you know, negate the idea that magic could be used at all. Beato's expression was soaked with blood and tears. Battler certainly had been tricked by her at one point, so he was probably able to suspect that her expression, that even her tears, were an act. However, Battler believed in those tears. After all, those tears had the red of truth mixed in with them.
どうすりゃいい。どうすればお前の痛みを終わらせられる。
今からすべてを晒すから。それがわらわの心臓。
心臓。
ロシ
ベアト。
殺してもう死ぬ。
Were those tears from pain and torment, or else... Well, either way, that pathetic expression was painful for Battler to look at, even after burning with such anger.
ヘンゼのところに帰ってあげる。
帰るためじゃない。お前の痛みを止めるために。お前の願いを聞く。
Okay, something that's been on my mind is that even if we do solve the mystery here, what good does that do to us? Like, at the end of the day, everybody is dead. That's how it all went down. We're just trying to, you know, dispute the idea that it ever could have happened with magic. But at the end of the day, how can we go home? How do we walk out of this?
ありがとう、バトラー。
In her last breaths, Beato summoned up all of her remaining strength and managed to close both of her hands into fists. Oh shit. A red light began to gather at those fists. Then she lifted her arms as though appealing to the heavens for something.
バトラーなら殺せるから。私の心臓を潰して貫ね。
The red light around both her arms gradually began to strengthen. Excuse me.
おね。
After saying that much, her face tilted to the side a bit. Then her right arm lost its light and flopped down. But her left arm alone did not lose its light and remained held out towards the heavens. Well, what's the plan here? Then, before Battler's eyes, another Beato appeared with a faint form, transparent like a curtain. The crucified Beato had already lost consciousness. However, the newly appeared faint Beato quietly looked at me, her eyes expressionless, and spoke.
後ろ宮バトル。
Uh-oh.
今から私が。
Huh?
それで
そしてたった今、この島にはあなた以外誰もいません。この島で生きているのは あなただけです。島の外の存在は一切干渉できません。
I understand. This is the last mystery that Beatrice will be able to make as a witch. She's trying to offer it to me, entreating me to solve this final mystery and kill her.
来いよ、お前の最後の謎。俺が受け取ってやる。
この島にあなたはたった一人。そしてもちろん私はあなたではない。なのに私は今ここにいて、これからあなたを殺します。
南條先生殺しの謎の強化版ってわけか。それで
私は誰？
それがお前の最後の出題なのか。
私は誰？
Then Beatrice slowly approached me and, still expressionless, held me. Yeah, I get it, Beato. I'll kill you, don't worry. I also slowly held her head, and then, as I, a piece, left the board game. I'm not clicking anymore. I have to read fast. Oh, shit. We get credits now. Cool. Well, I don't know. Died on the 12th Twilight. Yay. Ange died in 1998. Yeah, okay. Maria died on the 10th Twilight. Fucking Sakutaro. What are you doing there? Kinzo died on the 9th Twilight. What the fuck? What the fuck? Wait a minute. That could be a pretty big hint as to who supposedly Kinzo was in this go-around, actually. Wait a minute. I don't know who we didn't see up there that should have been up there. Wait a minute. These are all out of order. That's throwing me off like crazy. Why are they doing this shit out of order? I don't like that. Well, I'm lost then. I am totally lost. God damn it. Oh wait, they're throwing Goda and Kumasawa on the 9th Twilight? That's not fair. You can't do that. You can't make things harder for me like that. So it appears that I have a feeling that, like, there's a huge connection between Beatrice and whoever Battler's mother may be. There seems to be a huge connection there as to, like, what happened 6 years ago and everything. All the goats, goddammit. Fucking Okanogi. What the fuck was he doing here, you know? What was he doing here? I'm gonna have to mute the audio for this, by the way. I can't have this music playing. Sorry, guys. You guys don't get to listen to the cool music. Or I'll have it, like, really low. But, yeah, there seems to be some sort of huge connection that, like, I'm missing here. 4th game, Alliance of the Golden Witch. Any message for me to have to quickly read? Nope, thank God. Eventually, I'm going to have to, like, go back and go through the credits of the first episode because, I mean, there has to be something there. There has to be a whole lot in episode 1. There really does. Now that we've gone through all this wacky bullshit, I feel like we might be able to uncover quite a bit. Hard to say, though. Hard to say. All right, is there anything else here? Okay, well, I mean, there's that. All right, let's jump into, you know, the many question marks that make up my confusion, that make up my brain. We will jump on in. Let's see what's in store here for us. Ooh, the Purple Realm, my favorite. And with golden butterflies too? Where are we headed? Oh. Beats me, I guess. Fuck if I know. Scattered over the big bed were cute jelly beans of various colors and the chocolate coins. I like chocolate coins. Oh yeah, I remember this room. A fork was stuck into a shortcake peeking out of a gift box. And there were decanters with drinks of various colors lined up on a side table. But the color of the partially finished drink that had been poured into a cup was venomous, matching none of the decanters. Someone had probably been playing around mixing various things together. That can be lots of fun, if you don't mind the taste. On top of the fluffy bed were several colorful big pillows like something from a dream. Oh shit. And on top of this bed that looked like something out of a child's dream world, Burnkinstil lay face down, and Lambda Delta lay face up, clutching a pillow and relaxing. Yeah, this looks fun.
今回はなかなかハラハラしたわね。ベアトがゲームやめるとか言い出して、かなり焦ったわ。これだけのゲームを始めておいて、投げっぱなしで終えようとするなんて失礼な魔女よね。エンジェ、いい駒だったじゃない。とんずらしたベアトを引きずり戻してゲームを再開させてくれたわ。バトラをやる気にさせすぎちゃったのはさすがに参ったけどね。バトラは情に弱いって分かってたから。
Well, yeah, of course he is.
確かにあいつ敵であるベアトにも手加減しかねない雰囲気があったわね。前回の流れから下手するとベアトに同情しておかしな方向にゲームを流すかもしれないって危惧してたの。エンジェはバトラがゴールを誤解した時に再誘導するための切り札よ。本当はもっとサポートさせてそれから切りたかったんだけどね。いきなり切らされたわ。仕込みに随分かかった駒なのにもったいなかった。
For real, half of that preparation was basically half all of her preparation was half this episode, really.
例の名乗っちゃダメルール枷にしておいてよかった。あれを設けなかったら兄弟タッグ大活躍でベアとはあっという間に飲み込まれてゲームエンドだったわ。一気に畳みかけるチャンスかと思ったんだけどあんたのマークがきつくてうまく活かせなかったわ。ああ、もったいない駒だった。当然でしょ。あんなずるい駒とっととリタイアしてくれないと困るわ。まあ結果的にゲーム中断を阻止する活躍をしてくれたしそれは私にとっても助かることだった。互いの利害が一致する活躍をしてくれたという意味においては本当に素晴らしい駒だったわよ。
Yeah, it actually really sucks that Ange is already out of this shit.
バトラと同じで単純な子だったから簡単に私の言いなりになってくれたわ。駒にするならバカか直情型よね。ああ、本当に惜しい駒だったわ。その子も今じゃひき肉ねえ。後で一緒に
What the
それで
fuck?
ハンバーグ作りましょうよ。あ、餃子の方が好きだっけ。妹味ってどんな味かしら。笑える。
Yeah.
あんたそんな余裕でいいの。エンジェのおかげでバトラは奮起。ベアとを猛追し始め今やだいぶ私が有利なゲーム展開だと思うけど。というかバトラ今回でこれまでのほとんどの謎を解いちゃったんじゃない。はあ、とんでもない。バトラの青き真実なんてほとんど外れてるわよ。
Yeah, I had a feeling that was the case.
ベアとのぬるい赤なんて隙間だらけだもの。多少は知恵の回る子だったら適当にへりくつ並べりゃ簡単にすり抜けられるわ。ああ、本当にイライラしたわよ。私だったらどれもこれも徹底的に赤で切り返してるわ。
Okay, so if her red is not necessarily set in stone, does that really mean that there is no Kinzo to worry about at this point? Or is he still around?
あら、そうだったの。私はてっきりあれらが正解だと思ってたわ。小型爆弾を飲み込ませてうんぬんはさすがにどうかと思ったけど。
Yeah, that one was really fucking dumb.
バトラの青き真実だって 全部が有効になってはいないわ。
More so, maybe they just could have worked, you know? It's a solution of some sort, but you can have a bajillion solutions to anything, but that doesn't make them true.
ベアとは第一のゲームにおいて身元不明死体についてその身元を全て保証する。これによりバトラのエヴァ秀吉の密室殺人の犯人は偽装死体を演じた何者かという
Yeah, but
推理は破られてるのよ。
Not everybody had an alibi at that time, right? So there could have been somebody in there, no?
次にボイラー室のカノンは事故死だったろうとしてるけど自分の胸に杭が突き刺さっちゃう事故って何よ。ばっかじゃない。私が赤き宝刀とやらで切ってやるわよ。
I mean, it could be like, you know, the gun with the string and a timer type of deal, you know, just waiting for somebody to come up to a certain point and then like a stake gets shot out or something, maybe? I don't know, probably not.
カノンは事故死ではない。その次の客までの源氏たち3人の殺人の時計回りに同時に射殺して死に合ったとかいう相打ち殺人も滑稽だわ。
Yeah, I'm not accepting that one either. I don't even think Beatrice accepted that one.
源氏、熊沢、南條は殺人者ではない。最後の夏日殺しの
That does leave
トラップ
Maria,
Xも
though.
バカバカしいわ。
Maria is still, you know, very questionable in that one.
夏日を射殺したのはトラップじゃなく、ちゃんと銃を構えて引き金を引いてしっかり射殺したのよ。
And that's after, you know, going through that whole episode, there was only one gun, and that's the one that Natsuhi had.
ご愁傷様。
あんたダメよ、そんなこと赤で言っちゃ。あの子夏日の銃弾を魔法で跳ね返して殺したってことにしてるんだから。
あらあらいけない。そうだったわね。第2のゲームの青き真実だって甘すぎよ。
Yeah, what do we got
礼拝堂
there?
での6人の殺害時、犯人は礼拝堂内にいたわ。
Yeah, I believe that, actually.
あいつ何でもかんでもトラップ X で説明しようとするわよね。
It could be a contradiction type of thing with Battler. He still doesn't want somebody here to be an actual killer, but that seems to be the case. That's the only way that this can go at this point. That a family member or servant or Nanjo is a killer.
トラップ X って何よ。変なミステリー小説のお約束。使用人室で南條と熊沢が殺された事件のカノンの名前を世襲したとかいうのも滑稽だわ。カノンの名を名乗ることができるのは本人のみ。異なる人間が名乗ることはできない。
Okay, well, that makes things a little bit more difficult there, doesn't it?
夏日の部屋のローザからマスターキーを借りたという推理もダメダメ。ローザがマスターキーを管理して以降、それら全ては一度たりとも彼女の手を離れていない。夏日の部屋を開錠した時にバトラに貸し出した際を除いてね。
Yeah, but that's after everything was already done.
まだまだ続くけど、ざっと軽く見てもこんな感じかしら。
軽くも何も。あんた第1と第2のゲームにおけるバトラの青き真実。あらあら、なんてこと。バトラがそれを聞いたらそっとしちゃうわね。
ね、ベアとは全然追い詰められてなんかいないのよ。あの子やっぱりなかなかの役者だわ。きっと今回のゲームでは一見追い詰められたふりをしてみせて、次のゲームあたりでバサーッと赤で一刀両断にしてバトラをびっくり仰天させる作戦でしょうよ。それできっとまた大笑いしながら言うんだわ。魔女はピンチになんかなりませんって。
Yeah, we better hold Lambda Delta to that one. I hope we actually get that
じゃ
line.
あ、あのベアとの追い詰められたみたいな悲壮感は全部演技なの？
そうに決まってるじゃない。あいつ本当に大女優よね。全然追い詰められてなんかいないのに、最終回顔負けのクライマックス感だったわ。今年の助演女優賞はあいつに決定ね。
The thing is that we all knew that there were 4 more episodes, so, you know, thinking that this was like a huge reveal type of situation didn't feel quite right, and how she wasn't really fighting back, especially once we got into like episode 3 and everything. Yeah, I don't know.
もちろん主演は私だけど、ベルンでもいいわよ。
私を殺してみたいなことを言って最後に大きな謎を出したわよ。それを解かれたらベアとは今度こそおしまいの排水の陣じゃないの？
やだ、ベルンまで騙されてるの？あんなの排水の陣でもなんでもない。ベアとはね、まだまだどぎつい奥の手を温存してるわ。最後の謎を出すために両腕を突き出した時、右腕だけ下ろしたの気づいてた？
No, I didn't notice anything. I thought I was gonna have to read more.
ああ、そういえばあれはそういう意味だったわけ。
そういうわけ。あの子はまだまだ奥の手を残してる。そして何も謎は解かれちゃいない。それをまるで全て完歩されて次回最終回みたいなテンションにしちゃうなんて。つくづくあの子は演技の天才よ。ああ、早くバトルをどん底に叩き落とすところが見てやりたいわ。あの子、前回のゲームの北風と太陽作戦ですっかり味を占めちゃったんじゃない？バトラ、きっとまたベアトに同情してコロッと引っかかるわよ。女の涙は一粒で男を騙せるからね。実に安上がりでお得よね。
It's true. It is true. It's happened to me.
バトラ、またその手に引っかかっちゃうかしら。二度と同情しないように私もバトラを焚きつけないと当分はエンジェのひき肉で焚きつけられそうだけどね。
エンジェ味のハンバーグでパワーアップ？もちろんこっちも負けないわよ。ここからバトラと拮抗するくらいに盛り返せるようベアトを徹底的にサポートするもの。負けないわよベアト。負けたら素敵な罰ゲームがあるわよってきっちり脅してるもん。
A punishment game, huh?
あんたの罰ゲーム本気でシャレにならないから少し加減した方がいいわよ。
ベルンに次に罰ゲームをできるときはこうしようって決めてるのがあるの。聞きたい聞きたい。
嫌よ。
もう聞いてよ。あのねベルンを素敵なお城に閉じ込めてあげるの。
What kind of punishment is that?
そのお城は真っ白な純白の城壁に囲まれていて、一辺は12キロメートル、高さは10メートルあるの。魔法とズルは禁止。とても飛び越せないわよね。
14億4000万竜兵。話のうちが読めたからもういいわよ。
そこをね、毎日一粒ずつの宝石で埋めていくの。それで城壁いっぱいに溜まるまでベルンを閉じ込めて、その宝石で埋め殺すの。素敵なロマンチックな罰ゲームでしょ。
Wouldn't you be able to like pack them enough in order to like be on top of them?
一辺を5倍にしていいから高さを10分の1にしてくれたら今から閉じ込めてもいいわよ。
ほんと？ 36億竜兵になるわよ。罰ゲームが倍以上の期間になるわよ。そんなにも長い間虜になってくれるのね。ベルン大好き。愛してる。
Now this is what we call a toxic relationship. Lambda Delta playfully approached Bernkastel, who yawned, looking bored as she touched the bottom of Lambda Delta's chin, as though cuddling a cat. Oh, how fitting.
バトラの勝利にかけてて、私は二人が永遠に引き分けになるのにかけてる。それで誰かベアとの勝利にはかけてないの？
かけないわよ。勝率ゼロだもん。
奇跡の魔女に奇跡ゼロって言われるのも本当にお気の毒。私もかけないけどね。絶対。
絶対の魔女に絶対ダメって言われるのもお気の毒ね。
Shit, I'll say. Unusually for them, they giggle together.
このゲームどういう決着に終わるかしら。
さすがにそれだけは読めないわ。だから楽しいわけだし。
もう逃げも中断も許さない。絶対にゲームを続けさせる。逃がさない。これからどんな風に展開していくのか想像もつかないけれど、絶対にありえない決着の仕方だけはわかるわ。
ベアトが勝って終わることだけはないわね。
だって私もベルンもどっちもベアトの勝利にかけてないんだもん。つまりベアトが勝ちそうになったら私たち二大魔女を敵に回すことになる。
そういうことね。私たちの力が最も均衡するのは引き分けとバトラ有利の中間で均衡している場合のみ。ベアト有利に傾きすぎれば私たちは共に同じベクトルに団結してベアトを引きずり戻す。
つまりベアト優勢になった瞬間、私たち二人をまとめて敵に回すってことよ。ベルンと共闘楽しい。
And dangerous.
ありがとう。でもコンペイ島のお風呂には一緒に入らないわよ。
Oh, what?
コンペイ島のシャワーを浴びながらとろけたマシュマロを塗りたくってあげるのに。
気の毒にあの子は私と遊ぶためにラムダが捕まえてきた生きたおもちゃ、お人形だわ。
私お人形遊びは上手なの。ほんと上手に遊べるのよ。飽きずに一つのおもちゃで何百年も遊べるのが自慢なの。
ある時は味方し、ある時は敵対し、永遠にもてあそび続ける。かわいそうにね。あの子はもう私たちのお人形。
Oh, how the tables have turned. Or the turned of tables.
そういうことよ。あの子は私たちのお人形。私たち二人の望む末路しか用意されてない。つまり私によって永遠に引き分けが繰り返されるか、ベルンによってベアトが敗北して滅ぼされるかでベアトが勝って終わるようなことは。
奇跡の魔女として宣言するわ。
なら私は絶対の魔女として宣言するわ。
Oh
ベ
boy.
アトは絶対に勝利できない。そして奇跡は絶対に起こらない。
I mean, oh shit, yeah, they are laughing together. That's an evil laugh right there. Oh shit. I did not want to see that. What the fuck? Oh, I forgot whatever I was about to say. Alright. Oh, there we go. More credits. This time it's actual credits. So Beatrice is actually in a really fucked situation here all of a sudden, huh? But more so, what is gonna happen for the rest of this? This episode really did seem like, okay, it's just to mess with us for the entirety of it. Sure, there's definitely things to get out of it, and we can definitely walk away with some information, whatever that is, and we learned a lot. If we actually do need to consider the magic side to an extent. So we learned quite a bit about that through Anja's experience over in her life. But now what, you know? What fucking tomfoolery is gonna happen as we transition over into the answer arc? I'm not really sure. And these two witches here seem to have a huge grasp on what's going down here, more so than we could have probably imagined. And that's actually kind of scary. No matter the direction, these two will be there, always. They're the ones overseeing everything. Then Beatrice is overseeing from there, and then there's, I guess, whatever story we get told to us. There's layers being built up here, and there's who's to say when there will be a true end to all this? Could it really be in episode 8? I don't know. They could just keep on going and going. But I'm sure there's an answer to be found somewhere. Though it is crazy that after everything in the Tea Party, nothing was really solidified. But maybe we can walk away with considering that, sure, maybe Kinzo really is dead, and we can just go along with that, but we got to see how things really get set up in the next episode, I think. I think with what we have now and the ideas that we can walk in with, we can see if they fit into whatever crazy bullshit gets thrown at us in the next one. I think that would be, I think that'd be pretty fair. Maybe. I don't know. But, yeah, guys, we did it. We did it. We got through the question arc, and it almost took me 2 years because of, you know, shit happening in life and whatnot. But, hey, I'm glad to have gotten through it in a somewhat timely matter, and, you know, just, we'll keep it going. We'll keep on grinding, having a good time and all that. I'm excited to see what happens after all this. I was actually excited to come home and record all of this, but then, like, I started doing other shit. But, like, I wanted to make the time tonight to really get this going. And if you guys have been watching these as they've been coming out, I've been uploading these every day because I felt so bad for having taken so long to really get through this episode. So I really wanted to just sit down and do daily uploads for the first time in quite a while. You know, really sit down and do daily stuff back to back to back until we were absolutely done with all this. And, yeah, happy to have finally gotten done with this episode, which, for the bulk of it, mostly following Ange and jumping around with time and all that, it was pretty fucking confusing. I will admit. But happy to have gotten through it, and I did enjoy it. I did. I found a lot of enjoyment in this one. I think, I want to say episode 1 still is up there. You know, I can't really rank them. I really can't. I think they're all enjoyable for different reasons. I think episode 3 was still like a wild ass time though. A new game board added the next episode and the new elements. All right. Whatever that means. Probably the characters. Oh, hey. What do we have here? Oh, this is credits for the actual, for the port here. So if you guys didn't know, I've been running the Umineko project. I have been playing this on Steam. I just have been rerouting my, my launching on Steam over to the Umineko project to track my time and all that. And now that I'm done with the question arc, I have to move all this shit over to the answer arc game and then set it up in the same way. So then I can go through the question arc on Steam and just get all the achievements. Because I own both, and I want to show that I've played through both. I just didn't play the Steam variation because people didn't really recommend that. So while I'm on that topic, actually, thank you to Overcodex for getting me both the question and answer arc games here on Steam. And as I said, I am running the Umineko project, which you are more than welcome to look into if you have no idea what that even is. I do own a copy of the Japanese Umineko When They Cry game, which you needed to have in order to, you know, you have the assets, you own the game that the assets are from. So I want to say I'm in that legal gray area and whatever else. Thank you, eBay, and goodbye, like $10 or whatever it is I spent. I mean, it's cool to just have it, you know? It looks pretty neat. I just never really looked at it because I didn't want to accidentally spoil myself. I think I can look at it now since it's just the, I want to say it's just assets from the question arc, no? I won't risk it. Just to be on the safe side, I won't risk it. Ooh. Yeah, we have new tips and we have new character entries. Let's go through everything, and then I'll do my rambling for like half an hour. All right, episode 4 characters. Where to begin, honestly? Where to begin with all this? We can execute and we can resurrect. Battler's the only one that wasn't dead. Missing, bound for hell in the witch's embrace. But to the witch, that hell is the golden land. So he went missing in this rendition. I mean, everybody else, you know, it's It's what we've already read. All right, what do we got on the witch's side here? We got a lot of fucking entries here. Who the fuck is this? Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, that's right. I remember. This character got brought up at one point. Yeah, Chester 556, a weapon of the Sisters' Cavalry which serves Pendragon. Although 556 was a quiet girl who was always being teased, she was loved by everybody. However, luck was not on her side, and she suffered a brutal death in a battle with the Black Witch. Oh, interesting. She was a state-of-the-art weapon and added color to the Sisters' Cavalry, which had the strong flavor of an honored guard. 556 was in charge of squad fire support. She shot not to kill, but to protect her allies. Can we resurrect her? We can, actually. So that's what she looked like. Cool. I didn't realize that we can actually execute and resurrect you. The trumpet is her specialty. Everyone skips to her lively tone. Okay, interesting. But as we can see here, yes, Lambda Delta and Burn can still... I mean, they've always been on top. They really have. So can we kill and resurrect some of these? Can't do it to her. Can't do it to her. Beatrice? Nope. Ange? Nope. Maria? Nope. God damn it. Kinzo? Or Goldsmith? You know what? That was so weird. He was only called Goldsmith like a couple of times back whenever he like went down to the family conference, and that was it. So, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know about all that. I don't know if anybody else's information here has changed. What I do find odd is that we never saw from any of these characters again. We just never did. I don't know. I find that a little weird. Once they got shooed away by Beatrice when she started to have her fit, we just never saw them again. It was a little strange. Okay. Let's see. What does change? Oh, you can just change her outfit. That's interesting. Okay. I don't know if anybody else is different here. Again, I want to say that we know of everybody here. I did not know that Burnkinstill had a tail. Wait, is that accurate over here as well? Yeah, it is. Okay, she just has a fucking tail. That's interesting. Okay, guys, if anybody is if anybody has had their information change whatsoever, please let me know. And when we get into the next video, I mean, I've done this before. We'll just, you know, we'll go through and we'll read. I might have to read up on a lot of these again just to, you know, be ready. But, all right. Well, there's the characters. Let's read the tips. What do we have new here? We know about the Mariage Sorcière, the system of magic. Honestly, it might not be a bad idea to just, like, read up on all of that. Beatrice's titles. Regarding witches, regarding voyagers, and creators, these might be the new ones, the new entries here. The definition of a witch is vague, but the most accepted theory is that one is a witch at the point when they gain a power surpassing humans and are able to use it freely, and the world, or possibly fragment in which they can be freely used, is called their territory. Most witches cannot leave their territory, but those who are capable of transcending its boundaries at will and wandering the fragments are called voyagers. In the story, Burnkinstill and Lambda Delta fall under this type. Okay, I sort of figured. Voyagers. Worlds of different fates and circumstances are called fragments, and witches who are able to cross the ocean of endless fragments are called voyagers. It is also another name for a high order or high level witch, and witches who are unable to leave their territories cannot compare with their power. However, perhaps because they do not have specific territories, their personal values are unstable, and it is easy for their souls to become faint. As a result, it is not rare for voyagers to disappear like scraps of seaweed in the ocean of fragments. Their voyage has no endpoint, and perhaps you could even say that it is a journey to escape an endpoint. Witches of a higher order than voyagers are called creators. Creators are sacred beings who can create one out of the sea of nothingness. They can give birth to one from zero, give birth to the endless, and then return it again to zero again in a flash. They are freed from all restrictions, and the Voyagers sometimes even call them gods. In that sense, perhaps the Witch of Origins, Maria, who is promised to become a creator, may be called a chosen one. Voyagers fear that the end of their journey is to become a creator. As to why they would be frightened of evolving into a higher order being, none can understand except they themselves. Okay. And there's the grimoire. I don't know if anything is new here. I mean, I don't know if we even read into this. I wasn't hearing the little tune, the little, chime or what have you whenever there's something new in the grimoire. But I know about this. I'm sure you guys all know about this because here we are in a visual novel and we've all played games with different endings and stuff. I don't remember this. I don't remember the context of this one either. Communication booklet. Okay, I remember this. I want to say that we've read all of these other ones. Again, if I am missing something, please let me know. But it looks like, yep, we have the episodes 5 through 8. Good morning. As the story crosses into its second half, the tales woven by the Golden Witch have been exhausted. All that remains now is to understand them. Perhaps new game masters can offer a fresh perspective. Ooh, interesting. All right. Guys, I don't know how to really begin with all my rambling, and I don't know how much rambling I necessarily have. I'm sure a lot of you want me to sit here and talk to you about how I think all the murders happened. But the more I think about it, the more I really just don't know. The perspective that we've been given through the multiple characters definitely sets Umineko apart from Higurashi, where... Oh, fuck, god damn it. Sorry, I forgot. I have to be in a menu of some sort here. I'll just put us in this. Yeah, in Higurashi, we started off following Keiichi for the first 3 chapters, and then the 4th chapter, it was just overall different, but it was to set you up for the answer arc, and then in chapter 5, you began to get a different perspective, and that kind of continued along, and things began to open up a little bit. Here, it is less of a perspective thing from one character's set of eyes, but more so how the story is just told. You know, there's a lot of freaky stuff that has happened. And even in episode 1, we saw that freaky stuff. I was talking about it in my Discord. You know, in episode 1, it was mostly just the fucking golden butterflies. That was the, gist of it. And sure, there was a lot of creepy stuff that happened, but you can definitely chalk it up to a human performing those actions. Episodes 2 through 4, it began to very quickly ramp up with the idea of magic being a huge point of how all these things are going down. So, something I've been sort of considering for a little bit now, and I've brought this up over the past few videos because it has been something on my mind, and it's not necessarily like a huge prediction or anything, but yeah, it definitely seems like a lot of what we have been told, these stories have been absolute utter bullshit to an extent. There is a lot to gain. If you brush away things in such a way and connect some dots, yeah, I'm sure you might be able to figure out what is actually being said in these stories. But if you take them at face value, no, there's nothing to gain. We're actually just completely getting toyed with, just like Battler did for the 3rd time in a row, or 4th if you want to count episode 1. So, yeah, my whole thing here is that everything that has been presented to us is, a bit of a falsehood, to an extent. There is a whole lot of truth underneath somewhere, and understanding of the magic principles that have been brought to our attention over the past couple episodes, this one in episode 3 especially, I think could help. In what way? I don't know. I think I need to smoke one up and sit down for an hour and really think on it. But in all seriousness, no. I've been thinking that just because of how ridiculous this episode has gotten, raising the stakes over how ridiculous things gotten in episode 3. Episode 2, at the time, sure, I thought it was pretty ridiculous at times, but from the shonen battle that we got in episode 3 and just outright magic beings appearing and killing 6 people, no. Like, come on. It's getting to the point where the stories, they're interesting to follow, but they're not as engaging because at this point we're just getting a whole lot of false shit thrown at us. So what do? Beats me. But I think Battler came in with some really great ideas to try and attack a lot of the murders. And even I was believing that, Kinzo just could not have been alive, especially as we were going through. I've said it actually in multiple videos, that's not Kinzo. Whoever it was, I have no idea because everybody was seemingly accounted for. So who could have been there? But something I also said, I was talking in my Discord about this as well today, is that the more I tried to figure out what really happened, the more walls I'm just going to run into. It's a bit of a contradiction, but that's why you have to consider magic taking place in some of these situations in order to figure out what may have actually gone down in other situations. So, maybe not necessarily the victims of the first Twilight in episode 2 eating shit with bombs in them, but no, there was actually a culprit there. However, the order of things went down with the key and Maria having a copy and Rosa doing whatever Rosa did or whatever, there's definitely, a lot of questions to be asked there. But like I said, Rosa was there. Rosa was there in the chapel in episode 2 from what we were shown. Or was she? Were we misled by being shown that? There's a lot of unknowns here, but I'm sure there's also a bunch of hints based on how things went down and how things were said. Another problem that I've run into many times, and I try to be very cautious whenever I read visual novels and taking things at face value, especially with what I'm looking at and what I'm reading, especially with what I'm reading, is that this is a translation, and more so, this is a fan translation. You can agree or disagree with whether or not an official translation is better or worse than a fan translation, but at the end of the day, a translation is a translation. There's going to be things lost in said translation, especially when you try to localize it a bit for things to make sense. I don't know if things were said in such a way that could help. I want to say they were. I want to give the people that put this translation together the benefit of the doubt. But with how things are said, you have to pay attention. And Battler actually caught on to this a few times, that the red truth the red truths through the red text that Beatrice was throwing out could be circumvented based on timing and the way things are said. You can actually just slip under some of them, I'm sure. But I didn't catch them. I was more so, just fascinated by red text on my screen. What can I say? My big thing here is that I just can't take everything as how it has been presented to me in a lot of ways. I think episode 1 holds a lot. However, I have been suggested not to go back to episode 1 right now and wait until after episode 5. I don't know why. I'm not going to ask questions, but multiple people have suggested this. I don't mind really taking their suggestion to heart here. Let's do it, Let's hold off a little bit until like a little intermission. Then I'll go back and maybe I'll put some theories together and see if they stick for the remainder of the answer arc. But let's see what I can pick up here in episode 5, going in with a chicken with its head, cut off and see how things go. Let me get a little sip of this water here. Oh yeah, that's good stuff. And now let me open my notes app. So throughout the entirety of this playthrough so far, I have been documenting just little predictions. None of them are spectacular, I'm sure. I have not read through a lot of the ones that I put on here from the beginning, but let's see what I actually wrote from the very beginning and see if anything connects with what Battler has pieced together and what we have learned at this point. And by we, I mean me, because I'm an idiot. So, let's see. We will start with part 5. Kinzo appears to be willing to sacrifice or curse his own family to see Beatrice. Bit of an obvious one, but we were at the very beginning. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Is this true or false? Kinzo as a character, yeah, he's willing to put on this game. However, if we bring up the idea that Kinzo's not around, well, yeah, you know, who is Kinzo, right? Like, who is the supposed person in that room? Part 11. Have jokingly saying someone will die during the night, but fully believe now that someone will be murdered. I think this was before the first Twilight in episode 1. Well, guess what happened? Part 14. Those that were killed overnight were still awake, while those that went to sleep or had a charm from Maria were safe. I don't really remember. I think episodes 1 and 2 were the only ones that utilized the charms. We didn't really see those again in episode 3. And there was the case of Natsuhi having a charm, right? That she was given the charm from Jessica. And then Natsuhi's door was actually bloodied up a little bit on the outside. Genji was the one that had to point that out. That one, that kind of sticks out, that whole deal, now that I'm thinking about it. I kind of forgot about all that. Part 19. There's someone behind all of this. Nah, really? Really, Michael, from part 19 of the Umineko When They Cry playthrough? Really? There might be somebody behind all this? Sorry. There's someone behind all of this, with or without the use of magic. If it's someone that faked their death, it's Goda. If it's someone else, it's a 19th person. Oh, that's right, I forgot. Whenever I started recording all this, I remembered seeing like memes of Goda being like an all-powerful wizard or some wacky bullshit. Like, I knew it was all meme together stuff, and I even brought it up at the time, but I guess Goda was like heavily memed on for whatever reason. But then he like was one of the first ones to die. So I guess I pointed my finger at him. I do have some questions about Goda as a character, but at the end of the day, I think he's just really a cowardly giant-ass cook. Like, I think that's really all he is. An old giant-ass cook, if you will, who's just, he's trying to get the brownie points and whatever else, but since he might be looking out for himself, that could also raise the suspicions, you know? But at the same time, he also died in that first Twilight, and also the first Twilight of episode 3. And then he, you know, had a very unfortunate end here in episode 4, however that actually went down. I don't know. I don't know about all that one, but there is also not a 19th person, let alone possibly an 18th person. So fuck me. Part 25. Is Beatrice the true villain? What if there's something else going on? Well, yeah, there is. There is. Beatrice, or the culprit, may not necessarily be the true villain here. I can hold on to the idea that there's a little bit more going on here than meets the eye. Well, besides all the magic and shit. Brush away all the magic, I think we're still missing something entirely, and it's maybe not how we are thinking things actually are. Part 34. The Battler in episode 2's story won't immediately point fingers at Beatrice and may even defend her. That actually happened. He was more so willing to defend Beatrice's character in the game board for that one. He was actually willing to even side with the idea of magic at the very end. Part 45. Ava will have a spotlight for episode 3, similar to Rosa having a spotlight in episode 2. And I don't have this written down, but the spotlight in episode 1 was on Natsuhi, if you guys recall. Or more specifically, she was the last one remaining out of the adults, and she definitely took charge. I want to say that she had a spotlight, even so we didn't really explore her past, though there was some attention towards her at times. Anyways, the rest of this reads, her younger self is her form of magic connection, but that's just her convincing herself that to win, she needs to solve the riddle. And she did, but I don't know. The idea of there being like another personality within herself, I mean, that could go back to my multiple personality bullshit theory that I brought up earlier. Maybe, but probably not. I don't know. That whole situation with there being another Ava, and Ava tricking herself into thinking that she was, that she had an evil side or whatever, and maybe that's what, threw her towards such a dark future. That could stand, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Part 50. As predicted in a previous video, there are servants that know about the secret mansion that Beatrice, as a human, was held hostage. A hint at this is when she asked Rosa if she was a groundskeeper. There had to be someone that helped maintain such a large property inside and out. And that is true. As revealed here in episode 4, Genji knew about the what'd they call it? Kuadorian? They knew about the hidden mansion. So there were some for sure. And that definitely raises a lot of questions towards Genji. More about that later. I've been thinking about Genji recently. Part 57. Ava Beatrice will continue the ritual and kill the siblings and their partners in order to secure the gold for Ava herself. Yeah, that kind of went down. It just didn't go down in such a way that we thought, because in Part 59, Ava Beatrice will select Nanja, Rudolph, Kyrie, Kraus, and Natsuhi as the final sacrifices after Rosa and Maria fell victim to the second Twilight. Ava Beatrice did declare that she would not harm Ava's family. However, that did not happen, because George and, shoot, why am I blanking on his name? Oh my gosh, it's Hideyoshi, there we go. God damn. How can I forget about that sexy man? Or his name. Yeah, they definitely died. They did. In some, not at the same time, but in some pretty horrible ways regardless. So Ava Beatrice did not follow that order whatsoever. Part 72. Kinzo can't be dead if he shows up for the family conference unless he's been replaced, and if not him, maybe someone else. Ooh, I was on the right track here with the idea of there being somebody else that held the Kinzo name, or something along those lines. Not specifically towards it, but I was on the right track there. Part 74, similarly to other witches, Maria cannot be trusted, and should not fully listen to her. I kind of still agree with that. Maria is a very interesting character, and I still think about episode 1, where even at the end, there was the letter and the bottle or whatever. You know, I don't remember what everything was said specifically, and I'm not going to go back yet, but I think Maria knows some stuff. Excuse me, and I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I do believe a whole lot of the stuff that we're seeing is from Maria's own imagination. I think that how things have played out is more so because of Maria's creativity and how she put together an idea of witches and, you know, this whole hierarchy system and everything. I think it all kind of comes from Maria. So Maria could or could not be trusted. I do think a lot of this is utilizing her imagination to throw us off. However you want to go about that. All right, where am I here? Part 75. The story seems to change every time we jump around in the timeline. More characters get introduced and things become established. Even so, there was no apparent hint or obviousness beforehand. Episode 1 may not have been the true entry point to the story based on Anja's perspective. I kind of forgot about all that, actually. What did I mean by episode 1 could not have been, or may not have been, the true entry point? I don't remember. I might have to go back to that one, but I'm not really sure. It's been a while since part 75, but no, it is true, and I brought this up in a previous video as well, that, oh shit, my bad. I brought up that as characters and, you know, vocabulary, terms, situations, how they go, once they get brought up, they're brought up for the remainder of the story, in however order it's told. Meaning, if we learn about this character, and then we go back in time, that character might be there. Even so, they weren't around for any of the previous events in the story that we were told yet. Once they got brought up once, they could be brought up into any part, any time, or order of the story being told going forward. And I've noticed that with quite a few characters. And that makes me wonder if we're just kind of It's like, a story that a kid is making up, as more characters get introduced and they're just kind of getting thrown in, or more ideas. But I could also be wrong. There's a whole lot of stuff going on here that I can't grasp. So I don't know. That might just be a me problem. Part 78, many scenes involving Ange, the Seven Sisters, Maria, and Sakutaro didn't actually happen. Those were a different idea of what actually happened between Maria and Ange when they were younger and Ange stopped believing in magic. Yeah, things were getting a little weird in, I guess, the order of things, the timeline and all that. And then, everything went back down to Maria when, she was, before she died, obviously. So the order of things and how they happened and the communications between all these characters, Ange and Maria specifically, yeah, I'm not really sure how it all went down, really. I mean, it does seem like what happened in the classroom definitely occurred. And then what happened afterward was Maria, throwing a fit as if she's been told, like, hey, Maria, all of this is bullshit. And she was told that when she was alive, and there was also a young Ange there with her. So just a weird course of events that kind of just threw me for a loop. I'm not sure how to really take all of it, but things happened, I suppose. In what order, I have no idea. Part 80, Kinzo will choose Maria as the successor, as that will align with her having the witch spotlight in this episode. I mean, yeah, he did favor Maria in this one. That is true. Part 83, the person that we're seeing as Kinzo isn't actually Kinzo. He's not acting like he would in other instances that we saw him in his study. And that definitely played out, didn't it? I mean, the way his eyes were bulging out, the way he was laughing, he wasn't coughing a whole lot, he wasn't drinking a whole lot either. So, I mean, he did before he died here in episode 4, but you guys get the picture. It definitely was a much different character than what we had seen previously. Part 93, Kinzo was dead before the start of the conference, and his corpse is always burned at some point during the conference. Whether people realize he's actually dead or not, there are those who keep up the idea that he is alive in his study. This is why he wasn't in his study in episode 1 and became a closed room situation. And I wholeheartedly still agree with all that, because he is the only one to have a consistent death, and that is being burned. And Battler brought it up whenever he began to fight against Beatrice here in the tea party. It's so that we don't know when he necessarily died. Straight and simple, just straight to it. And that kind of throws off the idea of the Twilights too. Even so, he's always been marked as a Twilight in the credits for all of these. It's hard to say when he actually died and when he, how that would actually work with the Twilight system. Not really sure on that one. If we want to argue that there are 18 people, Kinzo always is the first to die. So he's in front of the first Twilight. It's a very interesting one. However, I will also say this. If I, can figure out what it was that I was going to say. You know what? I'll bring it up later. And at part 94, which was the last one, a gun was used. Just straight up. Like, a gun was used for a lot of these killings. And that seems to have been very apparent. And probably more of these than we thought. Episode 3 seems to have more big damage from a big bullet of some sort. So that might be one to highly consider. But those are my predictions. Nothing too crazy. Just sort of, my thoughts when I was recording. It wasn't my thoughts after recording. I'm always thinking and forgetting and then thinking again, and then I'll bring it into a video, or I'll just keep it in the back of my head for a while and maybe never say anything. I don't know. But those were the predictions I had while I was recording, so I can bring them in to a video after all of this to see how fucking stupid I was, or to see how close I was with some things. And I want to say I did pretty okay. And I didn't get all the predictions. I'm sure there were a whole lot of ideas that I just kind of randomly threw out there that I didn't list down. And maybe they were better than the predictions I did list down. But what I will say is that I really like the idea that there being a spotlight on different characters in each one of these episodes maybe minus this one, unless I want to throw it on Kirie. I kind of want to, even so it doesn't really work. But in episode 3, it's Ava, obviously. Episode 2 was Rosa. And episode 1 was Natsuhi. And like I said earlier, Natsuhi didn't necessarily have a backstory or anything, but there was a little bit of talk on her, and we learned a little bit of the situation, a little bit of the drama. Kumasawa kind of narrated that whole deal, if you guys recall. I think that's how that went down. Episode 2, we did see a little bit of a backstory, a lot of that abuse, and, you know, just kind of learning a little bit more as to how fucked things are there. And that obviously very much continued in, you know, episode 4 as well. Episode 3, Ava, that's a very obvious one. And then episode 4, I want to say Kirie, but I'm not really sure on it. Just because I'm not really sure, really. I'm not sure. She was the last one of that group to die. And it took, you know, quite a few shots to get her killed as well. I'm not sure on that one. I'm really not. But I do want to throw out this one interesting idea. If Kinzo was dead, there were those that supposedly talked with him in all of these episodes, right? But if he was never there, whenever this game started, I'm assuming it was day 1, right? When they got to the island, you know, the game has already started. So he should have already been dead. But we've seen scenes of Genji, Nanjo, Kanon, Shannon. They're all talking with him. I don't know about the other servants, but they all talk with Kinzo. And I'm pretty sure in episode 1, Natsuhi talked with Kinzo as well. And Kinzo did this whole speech of like, you're more of a Ushiromiya than, you know, some of these or whatever, you know, and she felt all, you know, great about herself. And then she was having to defend herself from actually, you know, being accused at the time by Ava of maybe, you know, being the killer and doing something with Kinzo or whatever. So there's been people that have talked with Kinzo supposedly, but what was actually happening there? And that's why I kind of want to point my finger at Genji. What the fuck was going on there? I love the man. We have not seen a lot of him in this episode or the previous one. But I have some big fucking questions about Genji and how he's supposedly connected with like Renove. So I hate to do this, but I do suspect Genji. I do. I believe that there's something up with Genji. I feel like he has something to do with the Kanon encounter in episode 2 and maybe some other events. But I definitely believe that he is not to be trusted going forward. And I hate to say it because he's really cool. When it comes to the other servants, I'm not really sure. Kanon and Shannon seem like breaking the fourth wall types of characters, which was a little weird. They knew that things weren't going to go well. It's another game or whatever. So I kind of want to just chalk that up to that's just how Beatrice was telling the story. And that's just another thing that we have to kind of just jump over. Again, Goda, you know, let's just make fun of him. He's a meme, whatever. Let's get back to that. And Kumasawa, I don't know what to think about her either. So, supposedly Virgilia was hiding within Kumasawa in episode 3, which was an odd one, but that didn't seem to be a consistent thing going forward. So out of the servants, it's really Genji that sticks out. Nanjo, I don't suspect him whatsoever. I don't think he could be behind anything. I don't think he could be his own culprit either in episode 3. For how the murders went down, again, like I said, guys, I cannot tell you. I have no idea. For the people that were, you know, killed and locked in the shed, anybody could have technically done it. Really? I mean, there were a lot of people awake, other than those that actually did get sacrificed in the first Twilight. For Ava and Hideyoshi, I have a feeling somebody was in there with them. But for how they were able to get out, I'm not sure, unless they were able to hide during the time that room was investigated, but I'm pretty sure everybody was accounted for at that time. So, alibis be damned. And I don't remember who died next in all of those cases. Count dying in the boiler room. That was such a weird one. I'm not really sure. He saw something. He saw the golden butterflies. So unless it's his mind playing tricks on him, which it very well could, not really sure there. And then the 3 that died while Maria was, singing at a wall or whatever, you could just argue that Maria killed them. For how everybody died at the very end, you could argue that Natsuhi killed everybody, but then who killed her? Because there were no survivors. There really weren't. I have a feeling Maria could have done it. But then what actually happened to Maria? Hard to say. Episode 2, I don't know what the fuck happened in the chapel. That was some gruesome shit. There was supposedly somebody in there whenever they died. With Jessica and Kanun, with the whole Master Key situation in that episode, I really don't know. Because we were also told in red text that, nobody was in there and all that. But this could also be the beginning of what we're seeing and what we're perceiving and all that may not necessarily be, precise. We are beginning to be tricked. So there's also that whole deal to consider. And I don't really remember what else went down in episode 2, but besides the Kanon bullshit, that was some freaky stuff. No idea there. Really no idea. Episode 3, I mean, yeah, you could argue Ava was the culprit in a lot of cases there, and Hideyoshi could have been a little bit of an accomplice. Believe it or not. I really don't know. But I do think that Ava was able to solve the riddle, whatever the epitaph really, or what the answer was. I hope that we'll be able to find out eventually. And it's still a little bit of a mystery. What else was there? I mean, supposedly there was a culprit in the mansion too. I mean, you could also argue that it was Ava. You can argue that it was Ava for a lot of things, but how it all went down at the very end with Nanjo, I'm still not necessarily sure. It could have been somebody else faking a death, but I don't know. And then they eventually died, maybe to Ava? Possibly, but why would somebody try to kill Nanjo? Not really sure on that one either. And then episode 4. Really, I just want to argue that everybody was shot in the beginning by somebody proclaiming to be Kinzo, and everybody acknowledged that that was Kinzo. Maybe you could say it was Genji, and then a gun was pulled, 6 people were shot in the face. And I don't know this, out of personal experience, but when you witness a lot of crazy bullshit like that happening, with people dying just like that, you may freeze up, You may just not fully grasp what the fuck is actually happening. Now, for everybody, supposedly getting locked into a dungeon and then the tests happening and all that, I don't know. But I can say for a fact that some people had some messed up wounds that looked like, according to what we read, were from a gun. So I want to say a gun was a huge part of fucking episode 4. Definitely. And I think that's it. I think that's really all that I can really throw together here in some rambling. Now, if you guys are still listening, holy shit. But also, thank you. Thank you for sticking it out through my experience here with Umineko When They Cry so far. If there is anything that you want to throw at me to confuse me further, by all means. I will admit, I probably already had somebody spoil something for me earlier. I'm not going to bring it up, but please refrain from saying anything that you think could help me. If you want to throw something at me to consider as we go forward, that's fine, but be very careful with helping me, because I think that's what episodes 5 through 8 are going to do. They're not going to hold my hand in a way that Higurashi did, according to what people have said in the comments, but this is my opportunity to be the big boy that I am and to figure stuff out. And guys, I'm really excited to do just that. Thank you all for joining me so far on Umineko When They Cry. 95 videos so far. Will we hit the number 200? Guys, there's still time. You can place your bets. I would say at the end of episode 5, you got to decide you know, how many videos are there actually going to be of this playthrough? Or actually, you know what? Decide now. This is your last time to lock it in. How many videos will there be of this playthrough? I'm hoping that we'll stay under 200 because, goddamn, that's a lot of videos for one playthrough. But yeah, put in your bets now, and we'll see how you do at the end of it all. But I'm very happy to have so many of you guys along for the ride, newcomers and many that are fans of the series alike. It's great to have you all here, and it's been a blast so far, and I'm excited to continue. Thank you all for tuning in so far. If you enjoyed this video specifically, please leave a like, or any of the videos so far. Please leave a like, show your support, comments, and all that. I read them. Subscribe for more, because you better believe your fine ass, that there's going to be more Umineko When They Cry. And I will see you guys in the next one, which will hopefully be episode 5's start. Unless I decide to do something different, which I don't think I'm going to at this time. But we'll see what I have in store for later in terms of an intermission. For now, we'll take a little bit of a break, and then we'll jump into episode 5. I hope to see you guys there. Take it easy.